Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Hassan. Welcome to my live stream. It's Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. And oh my goodness, uh, another incredible, tumultuous week. People are so upset on so many levels. And I guess I'm going to open with a few of my comments and then we can dive into questions and comments. But I want to first just start with the Epstein uh, files, and they exist and they don't exist. And I can honestly say that my understanding is that Putin is not happy with Donald Trump not doing what he's told to do, and especially heard music. Confused. Okay, back again. Sorry about that. So what I've heard is that Putin is upset with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is not following directions properly, and Putin has withdrawn his support for Donald Trump and is in fact giving instructions to a lot of the Kremlin talking pundits in MAGA who are criticizing Donald Trump and over this flip flop. And it's really fascinating to watch. And Donald Trump is threatening Vladimir Putin and saying he's going to put sanctions on Russian energy in 50 days or something. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. It's all guesswork, but for sure, the MAGA base is very upset. So, am I back live again? Okay, great.
You are live, yeah. We're just getting a malfunction, but just keep going. I'll correct it.
Okay. So the thing that I want to say is that for those of us who remember QAnon and conspiracy theories, of course, Trump started before he even got to the first presidency term, accusing Obama of not being born an American and therefore couldn't legitimately, be a president and such. So Donald Trump has a long history of espousing conspiracy theories, and one of the big ones was the QAnon psyop, which I have written up and evaluated along the Byte model of authoritarian control. And Dave Troy, who did a TEDx Mid-Atlantic TEDx talk during COVID with me and Jim Stewart's and Desiree Keene and himself. This TEDx was actually taken offline for hate speech, which is bull. But it was basically, we exposed QAnon as a psyop and related it back to Flynn, related it back to Russia as a way of just instilling a tremendous amount of distrust and fear of the Democrats, of major leaders, and they're all traffickers and they're killing children to drain them of adrenochrome, all loosely based on a Russian propaganda story of the elders of the Protocol of Zion. And the whole notion that there were trafficking children in the basement of Comet Pizza that got outed because there was no basement. A lot of the base still have been programmed to believe, anti-trafficking beliefs, and I am anti-trafficking. I want to say categorically. In fact, I did my doctoral dissertation based on trafficking international law that says that you can't use force, fraud, or coercion to enslave a person as a sexual slave or just as a labor slave. So I'm all critical of trafficking. But what I'm trying to get at is the history with Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein is well documented. The person I've been seeing messaging fast and furious about this is the writer Michael Wolff, who actually met and used Jeffrey Epstein as a source for his books. And Epstein reportedly showed Michael Wolff photos of Donald Trump with underage girls, even a photo he reported where a wet stain was on Trump's pants. So what is really fascinating to me is that so many of the previous MAGA pundits that would blindly support Trump are now criticizing Trump, saying, let's release the documents. But the average MAGA person is starting to have questions whether or not Trump is a liar and whether or not, there's funny business because there are 3 minutes apparently missing from the doctored videotape that was released publicly. And so just expect the Epstein problem to not go away for Donald Trump. Well, that's really interesting and important. The whole tariff issue is roiling the world. And all I can say is every time I see Mark Carney online messaging, giving talks, doing interviews and such, the more I have respect for him and trust that he's actually an actual leader, a world leader who's responsible and cares about his country and cares about things like rule of law and working properly. And in the meantime, Canada has slapped a tax on road going up to Alaska, and I've seen in Ontario taxes on energy that's given to Americans. And the question I have is whether Americans, and especially GOP politicians, are going to make an uproar. And interestingly, Mike Johnson, as of last night, said he wants the Epstein files now, even though the Republicans voted against the Democrats wanting an investigation into Epstein. So what else is going on? We have a continuation of the militarization of ICE as better funded than any police force, use of military people on civilians. I'm hearing more and more about Americans being stopped at the border coming back home because they have something on their record and being blocked. There's so many upsetting things going on, but in the meantime, more and more people are leaving MAGA. And I want to emphasize that I really want more people talking to folks who are MAGA supporters. Be warm, ask them questions, be good listeners. Don't expect to persuade them. Don't tell them what you think about Trump or what's going on unless they explicitly ask your opinion. Because the whole goal of freedom of mind and my strategic interactive approach is empowering people to think for themselves. And as a former cult member, I can tell you categorically that people have doubts when they're in mind control cults, and especially with leaders who are so demented, as Trump obviously is, where he goes off subject and can't even answer a direct question, or calls the reporter evil for asking a question that's a very legitimate question. So I think what we need to be doing is messaging to all the folks who had put their faith in the GOP and Donald Trump, and really empower former members to understand how to interact, share their story, ask questions, be active listeners, and make preparation for the election next year in 2026 and 2028. That said, I also wanted to just quickly comment that the New York Times did a story on Project Esther. I don't know if you've heard of this project. It's a follow-up to Project 2025. But this is basically using the Palestinian terrorist attack of Hamas, I should say terrorist attack, not the Palestinian attack on Israel, and their Israel's attack back, as an excuse to go after all people who are looked at as being pro-democracy, who are not part of the right-wing extremist cult of Trump. I also want to mention that I interviewed a Hispanic American consultant, and we interviewed her for a forthcoming podcast, and she was talking about why so many Hispanics voted for Trump, because of the failure of the Democratic messaging people to use terms that would be eliciting the wrong associations for Hispanic Americans. So, for example, using the term progressive to a Hispanic American who left a left-wing dictatorship to come to the United States would be eliciting reactions of dictatorship that the liberals, the opponents of the cult of Trump, are mentioning. So we really need to get our act together. We need to make a long-term plan to rebuild based on values, based on the Constitution, based on rule of law. And the Supreme Court just seems to be issuing thing after thing after thing, enabling the cult of Trump to do more and more harm. I think 1,300 or 1,400 State Department officials, many of them senior officials, have been fired, just destroying the United States as a world authority, a world leader. So lots more to say, but I think I've been talking long enough. So I would like to now open up to questions and comments, and I'll do my best to answer. Let's see, Braca 4, Palestine, don't know if I'm saying that right. QAnon MAGA made a huge deal of Epstein because they assumed it was all Democrats on the client list. Now QAnon backfires on Trump. Yep, exactly. But I do want to comment that my experience researching the book, The Cult of Trump, was that Democrats have been corrupted by many of the same forces as the Republicans have been corrupted. And I really want all my listeners to get out of an all or nothing binary view of reality and understand that reality is often very complicated and that we often don't have all the information. But for sure, I can tell you that the notion that Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris are demons or they are reptilian aliens who are shapeshifters and other nonsensical beliefs, these conspiracy theories need to get debunked. And I just did an interview yesterday with a social psychologist from the University of Cambridge in the UK who wrote this great book called Foolproof, Sander van der Linden, is a social psychology professor. And this whole book is about approaching conspiracy theories and disinformation and misinformation as an information virus. And so his research and his whole approach is wanting to vaccinate the minds of people by teaching them the techniques of conspiracy theories and exposing them in a weakened dose. And he created a game that's online that I wanted to mention today called getbadnews.com. And check it out. And it will begin to teach you and expose you to the most common techniques by conspiracy theorists and such. Let's see, Sasquatch, we really need to be more strategic in our approach on the left and trying to get through to these people. I don't think saying they're too far gone, it's a viable option. Absolutely. And let me urge you to stop thinking about left and right and think about pro-democracy versus authoritarian or versus fascist authoritarian. So we don't want to use the framing that the cult of Trump dictates to us. And honestly, are you for democracy? Are you for human rights? Are you for habeas corpus and court-ordered warrants? And are you for education? Are you for health care for the public? Are you for protecting consumers against bad corporations? That's another interview I just conducted with a doctor at the University of California, San Francisco, who is involved with the Center for Corporate Harm. And they're trying to hold up and centralize the data, because we're now understanding a lot of the big corporations are just using information, misinformation, disinformation, distraction to sell their products, which are harmful for people, with no liability to themselves or responsibility. So let's see, TikTok just banned us from live streaming again because someone reported the live stream as misinformation. I wonder who has reported us. So for those on this call, you know my BITE model of authoritarian control, behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotion control. Information control is the number one thing online. And what could be more effective than banning people like myself from educating other people about the techniques used by authoritarians? We know that TikTok is owned by China. We know that China has its own agenda, and they're gathering information on every single person who's on TikTok. And they don't want, all authoritarians don't want their techniques and their methods known by average citizens. And so I come back to the premise of freedom of mind, which is the name of my company. And I say it's your mind and only you should control it. And in order to control your own mind, you need to understand your values, who you are, be tuned into your conscience, be in your body in the here and now, and also study social psychology and techniques of mind control to protect yourself and your family and friends from bad actors. And more, we're going to need to spend more time in real life with actual people that we know and can trust versus spending 9 hours online with strangers and getting our brains pickled by advertisers or by people who are just wanting to know how our brain reacts to different A/B testing and such. Let's see. We have Chris Obligar. Could you speak to how when MAGA wears MAGA hats or Trump hats are microaggressions and very deliberate? Let me see if I understand your question. Well, I want to say that a MAGA hat is what's known as an anchor. It creates an association. That's why we put the red hat on the cover of the Cult of Trump. I have a copy that's a little bit closer that I can hold up. We put the hat there because we want people to see the red hat and see the word cult and associate the term cult with Trump. And so in terms of the concept of microaggressions, this is a term that I understand is used when something hurts or traumatizes a population of people, and they may not be the people who are doing the microaggressions may not even be aware that they're causing harm. I was literally walking back from my coffee shop this morning, and there's a guy, and I live in Northampton, which is one of the bluest cities in the United States of America. And there was a guy on the corner waving a Trump flag and had an American flag. And I didn't go over to talk with him, but I may in the future. I'd like to do it when I have somebody with me who can be recording it on video. But I'm curious if he's being paid to do this. My guess is he is, but he could be a true believer, in which case I would be very interested to ask him a whole bunch of questions and record it if he's willing to let me record it. But back to the whole point is I really think we need to be thinking ahead. We want to be pro-democracy, pro-human rights, pro-separation of church and state, pro-constitution, pro-habeas corpus, and pro-being in real life with other fellow human beings as this fascist authoritarian cult is doing so much harm to so many people. Let's see. I agreed. We need to welcome them, period. It's the only way we get out of this. Thank you for your comment. And it's also just common sense. And I just want to state again, any pundit that says that MAGA followers are brainwashed and nothing you say will influence them don't know what they're talking about. This is my expertise. And I was as fanatical a Mooney as any MAGA person ever was. And I got out. And I've dedicated my life to helping people get out of all types of authoritarian cults. Let's see, Sandra M. Kittens, my neighbor is MAGA, and a word here and there gets him thinking a little. It's aggravating, but there's some progress. So I want to say, if there's someone who's a neighbor, someone that's a coworker, you have the opportunity to have exposure over and over and over again, and just being warm and friendly, being nice to them. If they're a neighbor, you can, bake some cookies and share and such. And the programming that they are given by MAGA is to hate you. But if you're being nice to them and human to them, it creates dissonance. And that's exactly what we want to stimulate, is to let them know that people who don't agree with Donald Trump and MAGA are nice people who are kind and caring and concerned and, good citizens. Let's see. I'm not reading people's names because I don't know how to pronounce it, but understanding cultures, including cults, is essential in understanding people and building connections and community. Absolutely. And if you haven't noticed, a lot of what's been happening worldwide, excuse me, is identity politics. So, if you're aware of India, the world's largest democracy, Modi is a nationalist who's pushing Hinduism as the greatest religion on earth, and he's inherently critical of Muslims and Pakistan, right? And if you're trying to create dissonance, if you're trying to create tension and problems amongst a diverse culture, which America is, get everybody into their own little tribal silos and make them believe that everyone outside of their silos is a threat and is out to harm them. And I say, if you understand that technique, go out of your way to build bridges and be friends with people. And anyway, I think it's so much healthier for the human mind if we expose ourselves to people with different points of view. So I'm going to just mention ground.news is an aggregator of news, and it will give you a story told by the pro-democracy, pro-journalistic principles and the right-wing authoritarian one. And you can make up your mind and use Cult Expert and if you sign up for it. We would appreciate that. But understand that nobody has the truth with a capital T. And if you meet people who are absolutely certain about things, it should let your spidey alarms go off. Let's see. Ziazawa, he kept calling them as very special people. Yeah, so, if you can read Combating Cult Mind Control, the cult leader always wants to convey a certain sense of identity. If you're following his group, then you're chosen, you'll go to heaven, you'll become God, you'll become perfect and enlightened. Different cults have different appeals. But, and I think I talked about this last week, that I'm seeing some people messaging about fused identities. And I don't think what we're dealing with when we're dealing with mind control cults is a fused identity. I think we're dealing with a dissociative disorder, and the cult identity is fused with the cult leader and the organization. So that if someone says something critical against the cult leader, your cult identity feels like they're criticizing you and you get defensive. But if you keep in mind the dual identity, you'll understand not to attack the leader, the doctrine, or the policy head on, but talk about other groups that the person would agree are destructive cults, like Chinese communist brainwashing or pimps and traffickers. Explain the bite model or Lifton's 8 principles, and ask questions and be patient and be a good listener, because people will ultimately get themselves out of this, because it sucks being in a mind control cult. It's very suffocating. And you know that the minute you question the leader or the doctrine or the policy, when you're in one of these groups, everyone's going to turn on you. And that's opposite of a healthy church or synagogue or group where you can disagree with everybody and they still love you, they still like you, they still want to be involved with you, and they give you the right to have a different opinion than them. Let's see, does Trump recover from this? This may be what breaks him. I don't think Trump's going to recover. If Putin is done with him, I don't think anything Trump does is going to get him to have Putin support him again. And plus, every time I watch interviews with Donald Trump, he's making less and less sense. I mean, the guy is really demented at this point. And I point out again, when people ask him good, direct questions, he's been making he's been calling the other person who asked the question evil for even asking the question. And this is cult thinking. And I go back to his childhood and the power of positive thinking. I wrote about in The Cult of Trump that Trump was raised in Norman Vincent Peale's cult, and he was trained to think it's evil to have doubts. And so we're seeing the fruits of this destructive childhood that's now harming so many people around the world. Nan V, how did they miss Trump's lifelong friendship with Epstein? It's very interesting to ask people, make friends, or if it's someone that just say, I'm really curious. What's your earliest memory of Donald Trump? I'm just curious. And when I've asked that, people will look at the ceiling and they'll be like, I think I saw him on The Apprentice, or I think I remember a tabloid story. And I then do a follow-up question. What's your recollection of your reaction to the first time you saw him on The Apprentice? And then just be quiet and wait for them to try to access that memory. Because when I do this, often people say, I thought he was a jerk, or I thought he was an arrogant slob, or something really negative. And then I ask them, so I'm really interested in your process. I'm really interested to understand your journey. So if you felt that strongly about him back then, walk me through how you decided to change your attitude to Donald Trump and think that he's a good person and think that he's qualified to run a business. He's been bankrupt so many times, right? So the point is to get people to start reality testing for themselves. And many times people will then remember criteria that they were ignoring when they were totally indoctrinated and just assuming that when he said, the traffickers are all the Democrats and such, that they'll begin to understand how their mind got hacked. Let's see, Joan, what do you feel will be the maggots' reaction when they discover Trump is on the Epstein list? I think a lot of them will be very angry at Donald Trump, and some other MAGA person will step up, whether it's a Steve Bannon, who was also a friend of Epstein, by the way, or certainly Vance is the vice president. But, I forgot to mention Ghislaine Maxwell, who is in jail because she was Epstein's partner and she helped to recruit young girls into the trafficking cult of Epstein. She wants to testify. She wants to be public, and she's not even asking for a deal. She just wants to tell the truth. And when people are, MAGA people included, are saying, it's only because Trump doesn't want the public to have her speak. Oh, and I think her family's even asking for her to be pardoned, so she doesn't speak. That would be really a dead giveaway that Trump is worried about her talking. But the bottom line is that I want people to understand Trump is not going to be around forever, but this authoritarian fascist regime seeks to be around forever. So for those of us who care about pro-democracy and human rights and the Constitution, we have a long project ahead to not only get elections going, but the authoritarians want to keep us ignorant. They want to defund public education, and they want to make people addicted to social media platforms. And the counter to that is informed citizens. Teach them about civics. Empower people to realize their lives have value and importance. And yes, we have to rebel against authoritarian fascist policies where they're, taking into custody people who are not criminals, and people who even have green cards or have lived here and paid taxes for decades. This is not okay. And regarding the flooding in Texas, it's really obvious that people in Texas turned down money that was given to Texas by the Biden administration to put in alarm systems, to make sure that structures are not built in the floodway. And a lot of the Mystic Camp log cabins were in the floodway itself, which is, I think they're going to be sued by parents who've lost their children because it's just grossly negligent actions. Let's see, Fat Dinosaur IO, how do we win against Trump? I'm all in. I'm doing what I can, but I don't have a lot of funding, and I'm subsidizing my people through my consultations. And when people buy my books, I get a small amount of money. But I'm really looking for people to volunteer, to help us message on social media, to subscribe to my Substack, Stephen Hassan, to help me with my YouTube channel, Dr. Stephen Hassan, help us with blogs, help us with messaging. And what I'd love to do is get the funding to do trainings. I could literally do video courses and demonstrate and teach people in large numbers of how to be effective to help people who've had their minds hacked. And it's not a simple thing. It's not something I could do in just, a half hour or an hour. Because, for example, a lot of my friends who have loved ones in MAGA, they have trouble with what we refer to as emotional regulation. And what I mean by that term is they get triggered by their relative in MAGA, and they want to yell and they want to scream and they want to argue. And unless you understand mind control and understand this person has a man-made mental illness, and learn breathing techniques and other ways to regulate your own emotional state, you're not going to be effective at interacting with a cult member. So there's a certain learning curve, but you can get better and better and better by practice and training. And I really do believe former members of all types of authoritarian regimes or cults are the ideal people to talk to people in MAGA, because they can share their experience and ask the person in MAGA what they think of it. And too many people in MAGA think Russia is great and don't realize how horrible it is to live in Russia. Like, talk to some immigrants who left the Soviet Union, who know what Putin's all about. Sasquatch, I wish I could give money to an org that would curate posts from all kinds of content creators that speak to the target audience in a way that resonates with them, just like Russia and the conservatives. Me too. And I've been offering the progressives, the pro-democracy folks, trying to talk with them, telling them about the cult of Trump, and they haven't been interested in my 49 plus years of expertise yet. Will that change? I hope so, because I'm in for the duration. This is my life work, and my work has never been more important than 2025. So, and I can tell you, because I was in the Moonies, I understand the mindset of MAGA on a personal level, because that was my mindset too, or similar parallel mindset. Let's see. Holly, the absolute ridiculous nature of these TikTok bans is unreal. Misinformation was spoon-fed via MAGA groups. Never saw a post about censorship then. I really want people to understand we are living in the age of mimetic warfare. Memes, ideas are being transmitted through our digital platforms. Many minds are being bent without us understanding that bad actors have bought our information, are applying supercomputers and AI to micro-target us emotionally. And they're making people more extreme on all levels, or making them feel like it's hopeless, or even driving them to suicide. Think about the 2024 election and how many people who were expected to vote didn't show up to vote. And I haven't heard anyone except myself talking about how I believe people were being influenced online to not vote. And I'm saying this based on a small sample, I know, but logically, from what I know, I talked to 5 people who told me, Steve, I was going to the polls to vote for Harris, and once I got in front of the document, I had an overwhelming fear to vote for her, so I voted for Trump. And one person said they had an overwhelming compulsion to vote for Trump. And so, because I've studied hypnosis and I know about a phenomenon known as post-hypnotic suggestion, I think it would be very doable to show videos and program people without their conscious awareness even, that when you get to the poll, you will feel an overwhelming fear of the devil or demons or whatever, on your profile. And you will need to, for your salvation, vote for Donald Trump or whoever. And so once I interviewed these people, I started thinking, wouldn't it be great to have the money to analyze all of the major shared videos put out by the bad actors who we can identify, and analyze them with neuroscientists and find out what was the secret sauce, what was being put in that the public was not aware of. And when it comes to the future, I mean, this is what I said after the election. It's like, if you're going to vote, write down who you're going to vote for before you get to the poll. And when you get to the poll, open up your piece of paper and vote for who's on the paper, no matter what you emotionally feel compelled to do, or feel a fear to do something different. And that's owning your own mind and your own body. And again, I understand what we can do. I'm not saying I'm the only one who has ideas about this. I would like to see a billionaire get a lot of us in a room together for a week and map out a strategy that could be implemented in the coming years. Because we need to approach this as a public health emergency and develop inoculation programs, clinical training programs for mental health professionals, educators, politicians, media. And we need to train former members who can help with the recovery exit process of folks and normalize and stabilize people. And this is another point. I'm not sure if I've made it recently, but I know a lot of people who've left authoritarian cults, especially people born in them, who have gotten recruited into the cult of Trump. And it's because they left the group, but they didn't understand the bite model and brainwashing and mind control. And that would help inoculate them from getting into a different cult group. Let's see, Claire Jacob. I had a friend who used to be deep into QAnon. She recently told me she doesn't trust Trump anymore, and now she's just as obsessed with RFK Jr. Is this common? Are people just switching cults? So honestly, thank you for your comment. It's very important. And I was just talking about people, especially people born in cults, if they don't do their homework, if they don't process their cult identity and understand brainwashing and mind control and do the healing strategies, they're very vulnerable to getting into another cult. And so somebody can be angry at Trump and then see Steve Bannon as the Messiah or Alex Jones or RFK Jr. By the way, RFK Jr. doesn't understand the difference between causation and correlation, and his anti-vaccination stuff and his autism stuff. It shows how ignorant this man is. Utterly ignorant, because there's been a lot of solid research done by people, including people who have kids on the autism spectrum. And I'll mention Peter Hotez as one, who wrote a book about Rachel, his daughter, and autism. I mean, I read the book about Wakefield, the doctor who fooled the world, and he was paid by lawyers wanting to sue. So he had this small sample and made up that there was a causation of the vaccination to cause the autism versus the correlation that they had a vaccination and the kid was autistic. Anyway, RFK is not concerned about people's health. Oh, and he came out endorsing a company that was selling ultra-processed foods. That ought to, and that's a question you could ask your friend who's into RFK. I'm just curious. Were you aware that RFK has spoken out against ultra-processed foods? She'll say yes, and say, so you're curious what you think about the fact that he just endorsed this company, and tell them the name of the company. I don't remember it off the top of my head. And then wait. And when the person says so, you say, well, this company does ultra processes food, and I'm trying to make sense of how he could say on the one hand he's against ultra processed foods and then take money and endorse a company that sells ultra processed food. Could you help me out? And just be quiet and wait while they percolate on that. Let's see. So Fallen Empire says, so making nice with the brown shirts would have stopped Hitler? Your theories are highly flawed. Expertise can be incorrect due to habitus. You think ICE agents need a hug? Well, let's unpack that. The brown shirts are the ICE agents. I see them on a parallel. and I'm Jewish. So do I think that Jews should make nice with brown shirts, or that Mexicans or Hispanics should make nice? No, of course not. But we also want to remember the people are humans, and we want to make distinctions between people who were criminals, who were in jail for January 6th, that were unconditionally pardoned by Trump, who are now ICE officials, but we don't know because they're all masked, right? Those people are criminals, and we can assume they don't have a conscience. But I think there's a lot of military officials, a lot of soldiers, a lot of people who do have a conscience. And I do think that it's worthwhile appealing to them on a human level. So I hope that helps. And I definitely believe in calling out bad actors. That's what I've been doing for 49 years. That's why I wrote The Cult of Trump. And if you haven't read this book yet, please read it. And if you don't like reading and you like listening to a book, listen to it. And if you can't afford to buy it, go to your library and put your name on the wait list and listen or read it. Okie doke. Let's see. Are religions like cults? Great question. So I want to invite you to learn more about my work. Go to freedomofmind.com, download this free chart called the Influence Continuum, and study it. Ethical influence, ethical cults, groups that are very tight-knit and committed and spend time and money, still respect your conscience, still respect your critical thinking and ability to make decisions, give you fully informed consent, allow you to leave without fear or harassment. So there are religions over here, and then there are the authoritarian mind control cults, many of which the IRS gave tax exemption status, like Scientology, because, due to pressure, lobbying, paying people off, lying on the application, etc. But look at how the group is structured. Do people know up front who the group is, what they believe, and what to expect? Can people ask critical questions? Can people leave without phobias being installed in their minds? So unlike a bunch of folks who love my work, but they say, Steve, I'm an atheist, and nothing you say will make me believe that there's something bigger out there. And I say, fine, it's your mind, it's your body. You believe what you want to believe. I tell them I don't believe in a anthropomorphized God that looks like a white man with a beard floating in the sky with a book of judgment on his lap. I don't believe that at all. And if I believed in any anthropomorphized image of God, I would make it a woman, frankly, because I like the notion of mother a lot more, frankly. And the indigenous people look at Mother Earth because Mother takes care of them. Anyway, I went off on a rant. Forgive me. Robert W. I've seen so many evangelicals try to reason with cult groups like the JWs and Mormons. They have no idea how to reach them. Yes, I agree with you. And I've been doing this work for decades, and I can tell you logic and reason and attacking the person's beliefs, if they're in a mind control cult, is counterproductive. And if you're a Christian, live the values of Jesus. Be kind, be humble, protect the innocent, protect the immigrant, protect, the widow, people who are unhealthy. Do not worship wealthy people and think that they're superior because they have more money than you. That's not the teaching of religion. I don't know of any religion that's legitimate, at least the Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, that says that money is the way to become spiritual. It's not my understanding. Let's see, Bracha 4. I am friends with a man who is a world-renowned Christian anti-cult expert, yet he is MAGA. How is this even possible that even he was ensnared? Please email me at center@freedomofmind.com and tell me the name of this person. And I can tell you there are hundreds of people that I see on the internet who hang a shingle out and say they're cult experts, and even some people who they're not former members, they have no mental health professional training whatsoever, and they have a history of criminality, they lie, and they do other things. We already went with that slide, by the way, Jerry. But just because they are famous and they claim to be an anti-cult expert doesn't mean they understand what I'm teaching in the cult of Trump. And I can tell you that people can look at the cover and decide that they don't agree with what the content of the book is. But I'm in the school that says, please read it, write down your questions, and see if by the end of the book it makes sense, it's coherent, I make my arguments, I give my support. I can tell you 3 sets of lawyers vetted the book, so it is all valid information, and everything that I wrote in it has been validated. The book was re-released before the last election. George Conway wrote a short forward saying the GOP had turned into a mind control cult. I wrote a short afterward, but Simon & Schuster didn't want me to do a whole updated edition, which honestly I would love to do. Maybe another book. We're busy preparing a Spanish edition of Combating Cult Mind Control, and once that's completed and sent to get published, I'm going to be working on how to talk to people in the extreme MAGA group and explain a lot more of the techniques and strategies that I think are useful and helpful. And, nobody's perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. I make mistakes. I've now shared 2 AI disinformation posts that people have called me on. And what you want is to align yourself with people who acknowledge they made a boo-boo, delete the false information, apologize, and try to be fastidious before you share anything. Because I want people to trust freedom of mind. I want people to trust me and consultants who work for freedom of mind to help people get coached on how to help a loved one in a mind control cult or help someone recover. And I'll mention I have a course that's online for psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and counselors that get continuing ed credits or CMEs. And I have a version of that course for everybody else, former members and parents who are trying to rescue someone, and just researchers. And I invite people to come to my Substack. Please subscribe. Come to my YouTube channel, Dr. Stephen Hassan. Sign up for my free once a week email if you want to know what interviews I've done and what I'm up to. And I did my second Substack live, by the way, on Wednesday. So people seem to like it and keep restacking it. So if you haven't seen those recordings, please check them out. And I want to thank everybody. I want to especially thank the Freedom of Mind team who are dedicated and wanting to help get this message out. It's your mind, only you should control it. And be careful about being online too many hours, and make sure to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Make sure to turn off your phone at least an hour or two before you go to sleep. Let your mind chill out, and have friends in real life that you can have real conversations with, and give each other power and hope. And I intend to do more talks, do more lives, do more trainings, and do what I can to oppose the brown shirts and the Nazis and the extremists who want to destroy liberty. So thanks to my team. See you next week. Take care.